Uh, the third speaker, the last speaker of faculty speaker rather of this session is Professor Dr. Zhanhuan Shang. He is a professor of ecology and in School of Life Sciences, Zhanhuan University, Gansu, province of China. He did his PhD in Grassland Ecology from Gansu Agriculture University, China. He started his research career in Lanzhou University, and in 2008, he underwent training in social sciences at Oxford University and the Macaulay Land Use Research Institute, United Kingdom. He did on-the-job postdoc in the Institute of Tibetan Plateau Research, and he has been visiting scholar and joined the Terrestrial Ecosystem Research Network in the University of Adelaide, Australia. He has published more than 50 papers in international research journals, books in Springer's, Nova, etc. He is also member of IUCN Commissions for Ecosystem Management as a chief scientist and key researcher. From 2000 onward, he participated in more than 20 research projects. His area of interest are restoration ecology, grassland ecology, biodiversity conservation, chemical ecology, carbon management, forgo process, quality, sustainable development in mountainous area. The topic of his deliberation for the day is high altitude grassland ecosystem. Sir, you're most welcome and the floor is yours and you will be given 30 minutes for your presentation, please.
Hello.
Yeah.
It's clear?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, I can share my presentation. Right, it's clear?
Yeah, it's totally clear. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, thank you very much for the Grassroots invited me to show my presentation and my study. Okay, so my presentation title is High Altitude Grassland Ecosystem Function and Problem and Management on Tibetan Plateau. I come from Lanzhou University in China, and this is my brief some introduction. And my report has 6 parts. First is background, some grassland on the plateau, and the second, what problem of the grassland, and the third is the grassland change on the plateau, and the fourth is the restoration and the management, and some results of the active restoration, and some suggestions. So we know the Tibetan Plateau is the main part of the HKH region, so that it has very important ecosystem service functions in the China and also Asia. And Tibetan Plateau is also the third pole on the Earth. So it has we know the plateau is the water towards the function in the Asia area. So for the carbon and ecological surveys of the grassland ecosystem, on the Tibetan Plateau, the carbon story of the soil is very big, and it's about 2.4% of the world soil carbon, and also in China, the ecological survey value is about 17, more than 17% of whole rangeland of China. And we know that the rangeland type on the plateau, it has three main types: open meadows, and open and steppe, and also open desert. And here is some vegetation types on the Tibetan Plateau. And also here is a meadow and forest and some vegetation types on the plateau. And we know the Tibetan Plateau is a 5 major pastoral area in China, and it has supports yaks and Tibetan sheep and yaks about 50 and 40 millions yaks and over 50 millions sheep, and also the local resident over 10 millions on the plateau. But we know in the past maybe centers, the global climate change and also some population increase, so also lead to some problems for the grassland on the plateau. So this figure is about from past half centuries, the shift, the livestock, the increase on the whole China major the pastoral area, and here and the Tibet and also Qinghai, and also increased very much the shift. And also we can see some overgrazing in some of the meadow and also some steppe. So overgrazing is very much. And also we can find some, and these photographs show some meadow became dried and some surface vegetation on the meadow disappeared, and that's because they couldn't, especially the Cabecera meadow, they couldn't adapt the warming weather and the dry soil condition. And also some in the past, some maybe some unreasonable policy did lead the degradation of vegetation and yes, on the Tibetan rangeland area. That's because maybe some, we know some over fencing some area is maybe better, some it's unreasonable some policies. And so what change of the grassland on the Tibetan plateau that we can find some changes. Firstly is about some desert, some disaster, because some climate change and all the weather, almost the snow disaster on the ridgeland. We can see I did the review and look through whole from maybe two centers. The snow disaster brilliantly changed. It's sometimes somewhere, and the grassland height became low, and the snow and the small snow will cause a disaster. So that is maybe recent 50 years, the snow disaster, the small snow will lead the disaster. And somewhere the grassland and wetland, we know the open wetland is very much on the plateau, so reduced before 2000 years. And that is the Yangtze River and the Yellow River headwaters from open meadow and ridgeland of the wetland change. And some here is the largest open wetland area on the world. Is we call is Rural is the wetland, so it's declined significantly here. And also some extremely degradation grassland increase. We know the extremely degradation the grassland in the world is about 5%, but on the plateau is about 8%. And here is some bare, so we call it bareland. The mountain and some grassland became the bareland. So that is a big problem. Maybe we will do the restoration and some engineering that because the surface layer is disappeared. And also some broken, also some desert area is very much. Here is Changjiang Yangtze River headwater area, some desert, yes. And also the grassland degradation and results some shortage of some forage on the plateau, and also caused by the climate change. There's some paper report that because of climate change and resulted some forage some shortage. And there's also some huge carbon loss. We know the surface layer soil disappeared, so that result the water and the soil also disappeared. it's big. It has a big soil carbon and despair. So that we calculated some about like this soil carbon, yes, and also for in different areas like Yangtze River and Yellow River headwater area, it's very hot, very huge. And also some vegetation, some vegetation become bare and also some desert and also some shrubs encourage and in the so that leads to some yaks. We know yak is a key livestock. It's a key livestock on the plateau. So in somewhere, so the herders they have to replace the yaks by the sheep or the goats. And also some livelihood and herders migrating also caused by grassland degradation. And those photographs that I did the investigation in the field. I found some villages they give the local residents they sometimes they give up the village they have to go to new area to build a new village. That's because some area because the grassland degradation. Yes, and also that in the media they show some water shortage is very much and some yes in also the plateau some that is I shot the last in maybe in 2000 before 2000 some grassland degradation and some problem some livelihood problem and now Chinese government and they have to build to restore the grassland to do the big invest to do the restoration and protection for the grassland to protect the biodiversity and the function and restore the grassland functions. So in normally we know in the for to restore the grassland and normal we use the active engineering to restore the grassland for the heavy and extremely for the grassland, but for the light and some middle some degraded grassland, we just use the fencing some area and forbidden some overgrazing is better. And also for the weight and we know toxic weight is very much, and we also use some method to control the weight to restore the grassland. And also like this some fencing and fencing area and like this 6 areas after 3 years fencing is become very good. And also we do some monitoring that what happened after fencing, and also some sowing some seeds, some local seeds. We use some local seeds to plant the grassland. Yes, I did. In my laboratory, we put some monitoring seed in Chilean mountain and also here and the central Tibetan and also Tibet. We do some monitoring, some experiment and to find what happened when we do the lot of restoration engineering on the plateau. So also we use some normal vegetation, some vegetation investigation and soil investigation, and use also some soil seed bank and soil analysis and something like this. We monitor the vegetation and the soil change. And here is I will show the different area, different years, the vegetation and the soil changes by the active restoration on the heavily and extremely the grassland. Here is light degradation, but after fencing and the grassland became very good. But for the heavy and extremely degradation grassland, so we need to do some active restoration And so that is a big challenge for now and maybe in the future. And here is 2 or 3 years, the change of the restoration and management. And here is some experiment result for the biomass and the soil carbon and level soil plus yes, and the plant species between some change. But in the short term, 2 or 3 years, for the active restoration, the vegetation and the soil were controlled by the additional seed and fertilizer for the fertilization during the 2 or 3 years restoration. But for the longer term and about 5 to 7 years, the vegetation became more stable. That we also do the investigate the change, the cover and the total cover and some soil carbon and the nitrogen and like this. And we found in the 5 to 7 years the active restoration, the vegetation can keep a very good condition. Maybe that's because we use the local species and local some nutritions like some yak down and some sheep and yes and sheep down and yes, because we can find under 7 years and the carbon and it's also increased very well, increased significant, yes. And but we know the active restoration is the long term, not the short term. 2 or 3 years and 5 years is not enough to restore very good condition of the degraded grassland. But for the long term, that more than 10 years, what happened? That I showed that does show the extremely degraded grassland. That's because that is our restoration engineering is key. So we focus on this extremely degraded grassland. So we did the vegetation. Here is we did the investigation in 3 counties. So that independence evaluation. So after 10 years, that is the vegetation change, and the soil changed, and soil carbon and also root carbon and root total nitrogen changed from the, and also soil seed banks change, and the seed bank some change, and the also soil carbon and some changed. We found that in the vegetation after 10 years, after 10 years restoration, that is active restoration, and the toxic also invited too after 10 years. Maybe that's because the active grassland also degraded again. Maybe that's it. But some vegetation species composition has changed. Yes, some native species coming in after 10 years, and also the soil carbon also increased, and the root also increased. But we don't find some dead roots is increased very much. That maybe I don't know. Maybe need more to do more analysis, and also soil seed bank. Soil seed bank is also increased, and the composition and the seed density also increased. And after 10 years, active restoration without control management measure, and the correlation between the soil seed bank and above ground vegetation was higher but the seasonal variation is large. That's because maybe the seasonal change depends on some seasonal grazing and seasonal some weather, and also the total nutrition is not significant increase, but increase the turnover and the stability of the carbon and the nitrogen. That maybe the carbon stability increased. And also we did some integrated or summary analysis of the different years from short term and 5 years and 10 years, more than 10 years and 20 years. Some summary analysis that we found that DOC is soil of organic carbon some changed. Some we found in the 10 years, from the 10 years, the restoration, the result is not better. It's not better, but maybe the soil carbon accumulation rate became lower, and this also is. And yes, here is long-term restoration that plant biomass and crude protein and biomass and plant species and diversity and also ecosystem total carbon and soil organic carbon some changes. From those the result we can conclude that at 8 to 10 years is key period. Is very key for the continue to restore the grassland by the active restoration. And also here is a special result of about 20 years. I did this experiment in the 20 years artificial active restoration. So we found is better. Is the soil and the root can become better. But we also continue this study, but we need more result to show this result. And the last part is my suggestion. So we know active restoration needs some native species, plant species. So that means we should bred and develop more native species to support the restoration engineering. And the second suggestion is we should find some period of ecological restoration on the plateau. So here is nature study and yes, in this study here is Tibetan plateau, the grassland is also the period area for the ecological restoration. And for the method and the years for restoration and the measures, I also did a review paper about 149 cases of degree grass restoration on the world. So I found because the grassland, regeneration years is not very long. So the restoration, the result depends the climate, depends the soil, and also depends the method. And for the cost, the high altitude grassland, the restoration engineering need a high cost. But for the nature, for the passive, passive recover and restoration, and for the active recover, for that is we should compare the cost. So we found from this paper we found the active recover is also not very high compared with the passive recover. So, but we know in the high altitude grassland maybe need more cost. That's because it's very cold and the soil carbon accumulation is low, rate is very low. And also we should connect with the local resident, their intelligence some method. Yes, for example, for their some traditional knowledge. So we should use their traditional knowledge to the engineering for the restoration. And the last suggestion is maybe we should develop some AI technology in the high altitude grass management. You know, in the high altitude, the very big wind and also very the weather is not very stable. So for the like this some drone it's, the technology use is not very good. Maybe we should develop the better AI technology in the restoration. So the last one is new nomadic models. But this is just my suggestions. Maybe we should develop this new model and we should verify this model. This is that we develop the two nomadic models. So this is the past or the present. So maybe let's maybe more discussion. And for the summary, so high altitude grassland ecosystem needs to be well protected and restored. To further understand the safe recoverability is very key for to restore the grassland. So maybe we should develop the technology system that zoo classification level and phrase for the restoration, and also we should in the restoration we should avoid the permission of automation, and we also should develop a low-cost technology and some also combine some traditional knowledge and artificial intelligence knowledge in the high altitude grassland restoration. And also the last one is new model, maybe is better. Okay, that's my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Shang. So, Shang, it's really a pleasure to have your presentation and the way you presented everything. You started with this carbon share of the soil, which is about 2.4% of the world carbon, which is available in this plateau, Tibetan plateau. And then after you just put the value of ecological services, which is about 17.68%, which is really praiseworthy to know, or rather really enlightening us to know. Then this Tibetan plateau, you just mentioned that it is one of the promising and the most important pasture lands of the world. But these pasture lands are definitely facing some problems because of this livestock increase. And in the last 60 years, you emphasized that the grazing of this pasture land has increased. Because of which the erosion of this land, rather meadows, has increased, and as well as the dry soil that has also increased, which is totally being uncovered by the excessive grazing. And no policy is there, as you mentioned and emphasized, that just to regulate and just to check this soil erosion in this grassland. And climate change and global warming, you also emphasized the two major impact, rather causes of concern, as well as these grassland are concerned. Grassland and wetlands have reduced before 2000, and you just did some scientific research in laboratory, which is really good to know. Good to know that you just took the example of this 20 years, and because of many regions which you find in the field, and you took those all regions to laboratory and then find out some solution there. And it is very good to know in your slides that the pictures which you shown, that is revival of traditional as well as many herbs and many varieties of this alpine zone, which are just increasing the widows and responsible to keep it green now. And you beautifully presented the vegetative cover that has increased, and it is just inviting more livestock. And then the high time to see also the migration of the people from these grasslands. And you beautifully presented in one slide, there are so many people who are just compelled to be migrate from this place because of these compelling forces. And lastly, you just, yeah, you just put some light, throw some light on how to restore and develop the policies to restore with active participation, with active participation of government, NGO, local people, biologically as well as scientifically. You beautifully worked in laboratory, and which later you hopefully transform in the field. Really, sir, you are a great practitioner as well as scientists, and less scientists, I would say more practitioners who took his result from lab to these grassland, and undoubtedly with your effort on which are based on 149 case studies, and definitely the nomadic model which you presented, and you lastly stress on the revival of the traditional knowledge and just to protect traditional knowledge. It is really very good to know the way you presented the whole picture of this region, and we are really thankful, you sir. Really thankful. Thank you very much.